What's up, everybody? This is Jose from Southern Life. This is the 2025 Buick Envista. Now, this is a car that you can buy brand new starting at $22,000, and it is very stylish. Now, I am leasing or borrowing this car from Conley Buick and GMC in Bradenton, Florida. If you are interested in buying this car, my man Angel Rodriguez can hook you up. So I finally get my truck back today from the shop, and the Buick dealership and GM dealership in Bradenton gave me this car as a loaner. So I've had it for about a week. Let me tell you guys what this car has been like. First of all, it is stylish, and that is probably the number one thing about this car, is that it's stylish. Stylish and at an affordable price are the two biggest draws of this vehicle. When I say stylish, I mean from the front to the back, the car looks beautiful. And even my family, you know, we were always buying like Mercedes-Benzes and BMWs. When I pulled up, they actually thought the car looked great. So this car, from $22,000 to $30,000, depending on options, I believe, is extraordinarily affordable. It's extraordinarily stylish for a Buick, but it isn't perfect. And I'm going to tell you some of the things I liked and didn't like about this car. The headlight look is incredible. The chrome on the front looks good. You got the new Buick logo on the front, and this model does have what looks like alloy wheels, so stylish, definitely. So this is the type of car that probably somebody will buy just to drive around town, like maybe somebody like elderly or something who just needs something small to get around. The most complex thing about this car is opening the trunk. As you're looking for it, it's hard to find it. I finally found it. I feel like for a car that's catering to probably elderly retired people, maybe they have back problems or something, it doesn't really make a lot of sense that the trunk button is so hard to find. It's not on the key, apparently. I'm not sure, but I feel like that was the first mistake. You can see that the button is right here next to the camera, but for some reason, as you're feeling around, it's really hard to know where it's at. I guess you could remember that it's dead center, but it's not dead center. It's kind of offset a little, so that to me doesn't make a lot of sense. Once you do get the trunk opened, it is very convenient for groceries. The height is perfect. Like if you were playing with drones or if you're playing with cameras and equipment, the height is almost like the height of a table, so it's kind of higher than, let's say, a Camry. So like for me, as I'm working with my recording equipment, it's a very convenient height of the trunk. So if you're doing stuff like carrying around equipment, or you're working and you got tablets and stuff like that, the height of this trunk is perfect. And it does have like this little thing that covers it, so whatever you put back there is very safe and concealed. Nobody can see it. The other thing about this car, well, we'll have to go in the interior to see it. There's a few things about the interior that are definitely questionable. What's up, Katie?
Hello.
So the interior, there really isn't a lot that can be said about comfort in this vehicle. When you're sitting down, your leg, you can actually see how my foot's been hitting the bottom of the speaker box there. So there's not a lot of space on the driver's seat. In fact, me as a big person, one of my foot's hitting this, and my other foot is hitting the lever, which ends up being there. And I probably have black marks on my legs just from the lever hitting my leg. So the interior does feel stylish. It does feel neat and modern, but there's a lot to be desired as far as the size and space inside of this vehicle. In the back seat, let me see. I think it's big enough for, it's a small car. It's not gigantic, but don't worry about the mess back there right now. You know, there's not a lot going on here. It's very simple in the back seat. After all, you're only paying $22,000 for a car, so there's not a lot that can be said there. Once you sit down, so I found the infotainment center kind of difficult to understand, and the controls to be very delayed. That's your infotainment center. You know, the turn signals, all this. Like the weirdest thing when I first got in this car is I couldn't figure out where the volume knobs are, because there's no volume controls here. They're on the back of the steering wheel for volume on this side and change the track on this side. And if you're listening to the radio, then you have to do it manually, because it's got the whole thing where it's trying to encourage you to use satellite radio. But you can already see that as I'm sitting here, my legs are already hitting here. There's not a lot of room. In fact, like just sitting normally, I'm literally overlapping all this. It really just hurts and feels uncomfortable for a big person. This car is definitely not ideal for big people. You do have cruise control and adaptive cruise control, which I couldn't figure out. Fuel economy was very disappointing. I found that none of these controls are very, they're not very responsive. As you're clicking around, it kind of drags. It doesn't make sense. Why is the traction control here? I mean, look at these logos. They're hard. What are these logos even for? Now, it says it's doing 28 miles per gallon. It's really doing about 26. The issue with that is my pickup truck does 19 miles per gallon, sometimes 20 on highway. So here you are with a 3-cylinder car, and it's only like, I don't know, 33% more effective than my pickup truck on fuel economy. It seems like this car should get 40 miles to the gallon. So it says at some point it got 41 miles to the gallon. I don't believe that. And that's not even accurate. I did the math myself, and this car does about 26 miles to the gallon in real life. So it isn't as fuel economic as you would think a 3-cylinder car would be. And of course, it's not very responsive with only a freaking 3-cylinder engine. The fact that there's no volume controls in here is aggravating, and the volume is very unresponsive. So like as you're changing the volume, you know, it's like in steps. So like, let me just show you guys. Like, let's say your volume is maxed out, right? Which, look how long it took to max out your volume, right? So now you're blasting music, and all of a sudden you get put over by a cop. Look how long it takes for the volume to go down. Several seconds. You can also mute it over here, but there's 2 buttons, and they kind of look the same. So none of it, like, it's very little thought went into the design of this interior. And then you have a power button, which I guess you can turn off. What? Like, I just pressed it. What turned off? The infotainment center turns off. I thought you would, and you know, like when I first got in the car, I thought that was the power button for the car, because if you're sitting here and your steering wheel's in a normal position, you can't see the power button, you know. So like every time you're getting in and out of car, you have to like look for the power button. So, all right, so driving the Buick Envista, the steering wheel feels kind of light. Let's pull a U-turn here. It definitely has a pretty smooth steering for a small car. Of course, with just a small wheelbase, this car also, when you're driving it like down the highway, you know, it's a tiny little car. So if you're going 80 miles an hour on just a small wheelbase, it literally feels like you're gonna fly off the road. Like, it doesn't have a lot of control. I will say that the steering on this car feels very light and comfortable and almost enjoyable. It has a very light steering, so that's probably one of the better things that this car has going for it. As far as power, though, I mean, it's a 3-cylinder engine. If you step on it, it kind of responds delayed, and it does pick up pretty well. But then when you step on the brakes, the braking is subpar. I mean, it doesn't exactly brake very responsively, and it doesn't steer very responsively. So the steering is light. So I guess this is a very comfortable car to drive at slow speeds. But once you're going at higher speeds, there goes one just like it right there. So they're getting around. The problem with this car really is that it has to, like right here, like it really felt forced to step on the brakes. Like, it didn't feel smooth. I think the braking is definitely subpar. But again, at that price point, you're competing with Corollas and Camrys, and you know, those are much more reliable, probably much more stylish as far as name brand goes. So there's a lot to compete with. Now, the interior design, I think, is actually pretty nice. I think in Doug DeMuro's review of this car, he mentioned that, you know, the plastic on the dash kind of looks like it's a leather, but it's not. It's a plastic. I've also noticed that it kind of gets very dirty very easy on the interior. It's not a very durable. Yeah, like it doesn't like look like it's like on the Toyotas, like even though it's like really crappy plastic, it does clean up fairly well. All right, Katie, so what are your thoughts on the Buick Envista and whatnot?
I think it's a very... Basically, a Corolla is better than this.
Yeah, it's not as nice as a Corolla, and it's at the same price point. So I feel like, for the most part, there has to be an incentive to go with this versus a Corolla. I mean, maybe being different, maybe being an American car, although the Corollas are built in the United States. So, like, there isn't really a lot, you know, it's at the right price point for what it is. I mean, there aren't too many options at $22,000 brand new. And I will be honest, like, if I just needed a car to get to work and I wanted a new car, this wouldn't be a bad option, I think, because, I mean, at $22,000, you could probably pay it off in the first year if you're working enough. Now, I find the air conditioning controls to be very delayed. So I'm always, since I've got in this car, there isn't a comfortable setting. It's either too hot or too cold. The climate change is very abrupt. The location of the air conditioning vents is also complicated. The function of the vents, you know, like you can open and close them, isn't very clear. I guess it's closing in one direction, opening the other, but it's so obstructed that it's hard to even tell if your air vents are open or closed. So that seems to be kind of a problem as well. The volumes on the navigation and the car audio are also abruptly high. So as far as like the controls, they exist, and maybe for somebody who's like elderly and going deaf, they would probably appreciate it more than I would. But I do find both the air conditioning, the volume controls, and just the volume of everything to be abrupt, way too exaggerated, and very little refinement went into the controls of air conditioning, audio, volume. All of that is very, like, I would say probably the right word is abrupt. It isn't comfortable. It's very challenging and somewhat irritating. Also, the position of the air vents is very low, lower than usual. And I think a lot of people would probably appreciate air conditioning vents to be a little bit higher. All that contributes to this vehicle feeling a little lackluster with basically all of the interior applications. I drove this car to Orlando and I drove it to Miami and Naples, so I did get a good deal of miles on it. I probably drove for over 1,000 miles in a week, and I can say that if you drive this car for a prolonged period of time, your back is going to feel really painful and bitter. It isn't comfortable. I think this car is well suited. I mean, from what I can understand, this car is probably well fitted for somebody who's elderly, who doesn't go very far. I'm really disappointed at the gas mileage, because even as somebody coming out of a pickup truck, I didn't find it that economical. Like, when I borrow my family's Camrys or Corollas, I'm shocked at how little they consume. And I do believe that the fuel economy on this vehicle should have been better for what it is. But I think, you know, like when you see a car this small, you're thinking fuel economy in your mind, but it really isn't about fuel economy, it's about price point. I do think it's a hard sale on this car with the fact that it has to compete with other small cars from Toyota that are at about the same price point, offer more reliability, offer, as far as comfort, it'd be a tough call as far as comfort versus, you know, a Toyota Camry or Corolla, let's say. They're both fairly uncomfortable small cars. So, like I said, I really do feel like this car is fitted for somebody who just needs an economical vehicle. The price point definitely makes you scratch your head and wonder, what if I didn't have a monumental car payment every month? So I feel like for people who need economy, I think it's a good option. This is not a car you're going to probably want to own like into 200,000 miles, and that's the other thing. I feel like most people today are going to want, like, if you're looking for economy, you're probably also going to look at a long-lasting vehicle, and it's questionable how long-lasting a 3-cylinder Buick engine will be. So that's also another thing you have to just kind of scratch your head and wonder. But I mean, if you just need a decent, affordable car, I do think it's a good option. And I definitely can't say I hate the vehicle. I just don't think I'm well suited for it. The space constraints on the size are definitely not going to work for somebody like me. Mirror visibility on this car is, in my opinion, lackluster as well. The mirrors are oddly positioned. You can only see just a small little bit on the rearview mirror. and the position of the rear mirror kind of correlates with this little tiny window in the back. Most of your head is like below all this, so like there's not a lot of upward visibility, and downward visibility is also kind of limited by the fact that it's a small car and everything's kind of compact. So I feel like the visibility on this car is definitely not good. Making lane changes on the interstate has been scary, but I can say I've kind of grown accustomed to the interior design. I think at least the presentation of the interior, with the dash, the interior design of the dash, it does feel very comfortable and kind of, I don't know how to, it feels,
in a quarter mile at the traffic circle, continue straight.
there's a kind of simplicity to the interior design that I like a lot, you know, from like this kind of rounded area for the info center, kind of the text on the dash, it feels like very simple digital dashy. It does have features that other cars have, like adaptive cruise control, although I couldn't get it to work, which was kind of scary because I relied on it. The other issue with this car, like let's say you're in a Toyota and it has the lane assist. On the Toyota, if you put on the lane assist and the adaptive cruise control, it's much safer than this car, because this car kind of, if you let go of the steering wheel, it kind of wanders back and forth, and again, it's very abrupt on those controls, where like if you're in a Camry, for example, you have adaptive cruise control, it does it in a very smooth and kind of gentle fashion, where this is very abrupt. I actually let go of the steering wheel on a curve just to see what it did, and it was actually pretty scary because of how abrupt the lane assist was. So it's definitely, nothing in this car has been tuned as far as the specs of any of the electronics. It's all just, it exists, it functions, but it isn't really calibrated for comfort or for functionality. Yes, there is a mountain here in Sarasota. You've probably never seen it, but there is a mountain here. It's just kind of like, I think it's a landfill.
Every elevation in Florida is a landfill.
Yeah, I mean, getting back into my pickup truck will be a relief. There's also not a lot of leg room for driving. So it's not a car, like, I would have this car like if I lived in a condo and was just heading to the Publix, you know, every other day and didn't want to spend a lot of money on a vehicle. So I'm not totally dissing this car. I can definitely see how, like, maybe for our parents this would be like an ideal car. Mm-hmm. The visibility issue is definitely concerning with highway driving. It is definitely not a highway driving car. If you're driving on the interstate, you're dealing with, you know, having to make turns and last minute decisions, and it kind of like drives really nice at low speeds. Like, it's a very nice low speed car, but it's a very unsettling drive above 65 miles an hour. And by the time you get to 80 miles an hour, it literally feels like you're going to launch yourself off the road.
East, Lockwood Ridge Road.
It literally feels like you're going to launch yourself off the road in this car. So if you have plans for highway driving, this may not be the car for you. For one, the fuel economy doesn't seem to be there for something this small.
At
Now,
the light, turn right onto 45th Street East, Lockwood Ridge Road.
Now, if you're looking to buy an affordable General Motors vehicle, I think this is a very good option. And I think this car could do really well in like Europe or like South American markets. I do feel like it's a car that has a lot of potential. It's definitely stylish. Like, I can see people in Brazil, for example, loving this car. But and even here in the United States, I can see people liking this car as well. But it definitely has its limitations as expected for the price point. So overall, I probably will not miss this car, but I can definitely see how somebody older looking for affordability in a newer vehicle would think this car is legit. But overall, guys, I can't wait to get back into my jacked up GMC Sierra, despite the fact that it did kind of grenade a camshaft at 68,000 miles.